This is Volusia Today, a public information radio program brought to you by the County of Volusia. Here is your host, Kevin Captain.
Good morning and welcome to Volusia Today. I'm Kevin Captain, the county's Community Information Director. Volusia Today is brought to you by our sponsors, the Daytona Beach International Airport, the Ocean Center, Volusia Recycles, and Votran Public Transportation. I'm joined today by co-host Heather Belden. Good morning, Heather.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm doing great. Hey, you are working on a cool event coming up. I think it's a week from Saturday. It's the 27th. Tell us about it. It's a great county event.
Yes. So the Chuck Lennon Park in De Leon Springs, they have a large list of amenities, but they are adding one. It is a hiking trail. It's a mile trail. It's actually a beautiful trail. We walked it yesterday. It's shaded. It's nice and clean. It's about a mile long, and it's a really great little thing to do when you're looking for a way to get outside and enjoy beautiful Florida weather.
Well, it's good that that it's shaded, because yesterday it was like 90 degrees.
It was a hot one, yes, but you definitely get relief walking in the little trail. So, yep, August 27th, 9:30 a.m. We will be there for the ribbon cutting.
Springs.
Yep.
Excellent. So today, Heather, we have with us Dr. Scott Klioze. Dr. Klioze is that's a mouthful, right? Klioze. He is an interventional radiologist. He specializes in vascular and interventional work with radiology. He's going to tell us all about that technical stuff. But he works mostly at Halifax Health. So good morning, Dr. Klioze.
Good morning.
So you've been a very huge advocate for us over the years, particularly during the pandemic and through today. To start off first, let's just maybe talk a little bit about COVID. What are the hospitals looking like at this point? And do you think that we're ever going to get to the point where we can drop that word pandemic, put it in the dictionary, and close the book?
I think we should do that now, personally. I mean,
Good.
I don't think a pandemic is something that involves basically the entire world, right? I mean, when you're talking about a pandemic, it's something that is multiple countries, and people are dying all over the place. And in the beginning, well, I guess you could label it as a pandemic because it was new, and the human population species hadn't seen this particular type of virus before. Endemic means that it's a problem in a small contained area. So, now, I mean, I've been traveling all over the world for the past couple of months, and some places don't even check now to see if you're vaccinated, to see if you've even been tested positive for COVID. So I don't think pandemic is an appropriate word anymore.
Well, that's
personally.
good to know. Well, one of the things that I know we talked about during the pandemic is a lot of people put other health concerns on hold. I know we talked with you about elective surgeries. They took a dive. And are they pretty much back to normal?
Yes.
And are there other health concerns that maybe people have neglected during the pandemic as we're now coming out of it?
For sure, during the pandemic, people were afraid to go to the hospital because of the unknown. They were afraid of actually getting COVID. So they would be sitting at home with a wound on their leg. They're diabetic, and they're like, well, I'm not going to that hospital because I'm going to die of COVID. And the thing would become, festering and just, get down into the bone. And by the time they showed up, they had a full-on osteomyelitis, and it was much worse than it had to be. But again, in the beginning, we didn't know. But I think as information became available and we knew who the susceptible members of the population were, that should have been included in some of the policies. And I fault some of our government agencies for not really handling this appropriately. I mean, in my personal
Well, hopefully
opinion.
not Volusia County government.
Not at all. You guys were awesome. And fortunately, I think Florida as a state in general, we did very well. I mean, much to the, criticism from a lot of other locales across the country, how Florida is irresponsible, they're not doing the right thing, they're putting the rest of us at risk. And then in retrospect, it sounds like we were doing the right thing.
Mm-hmm.
We were getting people out, and we learned a lot from COVID. So I mean, it was a tough ride for sure. 2 years. I mean, really tough. Shut down the economy. People, lost their social interactions. But the virus taught us a lot about basically ourselves, viruses in general, and the limitations of our government. And it kind of concerns me how we got into a panic mode and basically made decisions that I think were vacuous and probably not appropriate if you considered all of the scientific information that was available. And again, that is my criticism of the way we handled this as a nation or the world. But fortunately, we live in a state that I think did much better than most locales, for sure.
And you talk about the scientific aspect of it, and I know I might have checked you out on YouTube and watched some of your videos.
Thank you.
Yes.
Did you like them?
I did,
Okay,
and
good.
they definitely break down the topics that you are a professional on and can kind of describe it to the public. So what are your thoughts on the mutations of the virus after watching your video on the life cycle of coronavirus and kind of go into that?
Constantly mutate. That's what this thing does. And, I said that in that video. And a lot of the reason I did that video is so that, we couldn't have revisionists who were leaders at the time saying, well, we didn't know. I'm like, oh, we knew. If you look at the science, we knew exactly what was going on. And I think one of the first times I was on your show, Kevin, is that we talked about how this virus was never going away, right?
It's going to live with us.
It's going to live with us.
Yes.
And I got people coming up to me afterwards saying, why would you say that? Why would you say it's never going away? It's because if you look scientifically, we've never cured a virus like this. I mean, 50% of the people who were getting it were asymptomatic. The first clue that we had that this was a very variable clinical response is, I think, the data that came out of Iceland. They were a smaller country. They were checking any individual who wanted to be checked, because they could. We remember to be checked for or screened for COVID in this country, you had to be symptomatic. There were criteria, so they were only screening the people who were sick, basically. So in Iceland, they started checking anyone who wanted to be checked, and they were finding that 50% of the people they checked were positive and completely asymptomatic. It's like, okay, well, this is an issue then. You're never going to get rid of something you don't even know people have it, right? I mean, the only virus that we've really ever cured is smallpox. It took 12,000 years, but that is a different animal. It's a different type of virus. It's not a positive sense, messenger RNA virus like COVID. 30% of the people that got smallpox died. Okay, it was serious. If you didn't die, you were probably scarred for life for all the pock marks that you had, but there were visible signs that you had this virus. So you knew who was infected. And basically to spread that, it was direct contact. It wasn't, normally through a respiratory path. I mean, I guess in extreme situations, it could be mainly through direct contact,
So it's here to stay.
Right.
We know that each mutation, the pathogenic parts of it, or the symptomology, is getting less and less dangerous, right, or less symptomatic.
In general, because of the Darwinian pressures, the virus doesn't want to kill you. It wants to live with you. So in general, it's going to become more contagious, less virulent. Okay. So the virulence is the disease causing. But I can't say that there might get a variant that in a certain area, an endemic area, it may be more virulent than its predecessor, right?
Okay.
That's a possibility. But, in general, just what you said, it's going to become more infectious, less virulent, which we saw with the Omicron variant, right? Was it Omicron or Delta? I don't remember which one.
I think it was
Omicron. Yes.
Yeah, so one of them, everyone was getting it. Didn't matter if you were vaccinated. And that was the other thing we said in the videos, that, that because this was a monovalent vaccine, eventually the virus was going to be resistant to this. And I predicted back in October of last year that it would be the end of 2022 where the vaccine would be completely worthless. I was off by about 6-7 months, right? Because it's completely worthless now. There's no reason to get boosted, vaccinated again, because it doesn't work anymore.
Well, I'll tell you, I got the vaccine, I got the Moderna, and plus I got boosted, and I still got sick, but it wasn't bad. It wasn't bad at all.
But it's not bad for anyone now. I mean,
So if we don't need the boost, do we need the mask?
Okay, well, I usually look at what's going on, the local culture. I think, for the optics, when I'm in my outpatient center, I will wear my mask around patients because you don't know who you're dealing with, and they're still a susceptible portion of the population. If you're maybe elderly, immunocompromised, and elderly it's kind of a pseudo risk factor because I've seen some very healthy elderly individuals. But if you're diabetic and you're hypertensive and you're obese, those are the people that we know are going to have a problem if they get COVID. not as bad as it used to, but I think just to keep them from getting really sick and ending up hospitalized, it's probably a good idea to wear your mask around those particular individuals. So, in a clinical setting, I will wear it when I'm around patients, but I don't wear it routinely in the office anymore.
So how are the hospitals? Are they just as busy? I mean, what's your...
I talked to my buddy, Dr. Hung Doan. He knows all
Dr. Doan.
Dr. Doan, he's awesome. You ever had him on the show?
Dr. Doan.
You got to have Dr. Doan. He'll
I
tell
love
you a couple
Dr.
of
Doan.
dirty
He
jokes.
can put stitches in 10 minutes.
Yep, and tell you a dirty joke while he's doing it. So he's awesome. But I talked to my buddy yesterday, and just to kind of get a finger on the pulse of the ED, and he says they're seeing about 3 COVID patients a shift. So every 8 hours, about 3. And of those, maybe a third, one of those patients will have to come in because of respiratory type symptoms. So much, much better than what it was.
That's good.
Yeah.
That's good. We're on the descent, and we're
Right.
we're getting better. We're talking with Dr. Scott Klioze. He's with Halifax Health. We'll take a quick break and come back. Stay with us.
I'm Will Roberts, your Volusia County tax collector. Every 8 years, you need to renew your driver license. Through our website, you can renew your license or replace a lost driver license. You can also change your address. To renew your driver license, visit vctaxcollector.org/renew. That's vctaxcollector.org/renew. You can use this service every other renewal period. You also must be Real ID compliant. If there's a gold star on your license, it's Real ID compliant. Once you complete the online process, the state of Florida will mail the license to you. The next time you need to renew or update your driver's license, consider skipping the trip by renewing online at vctaxcollector.org/renew.
There's always something happening at Volusia County's Ocean Center. Visit oceancenter.com for upcoming events.
I'm Heather Belden, and I'm with Kevin Captain, and you're listening to Volusia Today, a public radio information program brought to you by Volusia County Community Information. So your field of medicine is extremely unique and intensive and highly specialized. You've been a radiologist. You work with every single subspecialty that they have. You've got a strong fundamental knowledge about the field of medicine. On top of that, you're a physician who performs invasive procedures where you treat strokes and stop internal bleeding. Can you tell us a bit about how vascular and interventional radiology is different from just kind of the traditional radiology?
Well, we all go through the same training program as radiologists. You go through the 4 years of medical school. It's 5 years of radiology, including an internship in something clinical. And then we can subspecialize in an area of radiology that really interests us. So I have partners who are chest, radiologists, and that's what they specialize, or women's imaging, where you do a lot of ultrasound, mammography, stuff like that. We've got guys that are musculoskeletal. Interventional is one of those subspecialty fellowship training where you go and get extra skills in that particular field. And fortunately, I got into interventional when it was relatively in its infancy, and I was very fortunate enough to train under some of the gurus and the founders of interventional. The guy that started in an interventional program was named Charles Dodder. And he was a little bit of a crazy dude. He walked that fine line between genius and insanity. And he was up at, I think, Ohio. And he took an 80-some-year-old woman and basically put bigger and bigger catheters down her femoral artery, trying to open up a clogged vessel, and just kept doing that until, she got better, and it improved her life. So we still call that doddering. If you take a catheter and run it through and just open it, we got much better techniques now, because the problem is back then, the bigger catheter you put in there, the bigger hole in that vessel, right? So now we can go in with balloons, and we can do the same thing, except go in with a small flattened catheter, put the balloon across the lesion and open it up. And then we've also got atherectomy catheters. During my career, we've actually been able to treat strokes, which is something you never used to be able to treat, but we've got these, they're called aspiration embolectomy catheters that are little vacuum tubes that you can stick up into the vessels of the brain and suck the clot out before it does irreparable damage. Absolutely amazing. And that has been one of the things that we've seen post-COVID, we were talking about COVID before the break, is that there's been an increase in the number of thrombotic events. So one of the problems with both the virus and the vaccine, because they chose the spike protein as the antigen that they would use in the vaccine, is that it seems in some susceptible individuals to cause endovascular inflammation. So it irritates the inner lining of those vessels, which then causes thrombosis. So we have seen a significant uptick in the number of heart attacks and strokes since COVID.
And speaking of that, Dr. Klioze, that's the importance of the great EMS system that we have here
Absolutely.
in Volusia County, and really both hospital systems, because the type of work that you do, time is, what do they say? Time is vessel, time is brain, time is everything.
Well, if you're talking about the brain, time is brain, and the heart,
it all starts
time
with
is
EMS.
heart. Right.
And then they bring them to you, and you put those catheters in and remove that clot.
Yeah, and so that's been extremely useful considering what's been going on. And it took a little bit of training to get EMS to recognize, because, stroke was something that just happened. There was nothing you could do, but now they're all over it. I mean, when they see in the field that patients having stroke-like symptoms, we're actually timed in minutes. I mean, from the time it takes them to get them to the hospital, from the hospital to seeing a neurologist to CT, and then from the CT, if they decide they're going to intervene, to the time it takes me to stick the groin and run a catheter up. So it's all timed in minutes if you're going to be a stroke center, which we are.
We were talking about viruses, and you explained the life. It's really not a life, right? But
that's the question.
The
it can't do it on its own. It needs us. So is it really a living particle? But
so you know so much about those. With COVID, though, now we are hearing a lot about monkeypox.
Yes.
Can you tell us? I heard today that the cases are approaching 1,400 for the state of Florida, and they've declared it a public health concern. But how big of a concern is it? Is it something we should be worried about?
So the virus seems to be transmitted by intimate direct contact. They theorize that if someone coughs or spits on a table, they have found viral particles in that, and if they spit on that and you put your hand on it or you do something, that theoretically you could get it in that manner. So they recommend that you do wear a mask around these patients and so on and so forth.
Have you seen any?
Halifax has had one case.
Okay.
One case. So, I'm waiting for them to declare this a pandemic, and I'm going to have to...
It doesn't sound like it's going to be.
I hope that never happens, because it's not. I mean, and I think that the people that are the at-risk population needs to be aware and protect themselves accordingly.
But not to scare the public.
No,
obviously.
I don't think it's, something that we've got to be worried about to a point where we're going to, God forbid, shut down the economy again. I hope that doesn't happen.
I don't think that's happening.
Not here in Florida, anyway. So.
And so we know you're a health nut. You exercise, you take care of yourself. You and your wife, Andrea, are very, very health conscious. In Volusia County, we know there's a cohort of our residents who suffer from diabetes, peripheral vascular disease, obesity. We've learned these diseases are predispositions to becoming infected with COVID and other diseases. You have an amazing lecture on fat, and you go into details about the type of fat and all those levels of stuff in the blood that gets measured. How does a radiologist find his way into educating the community about that?
That's interesting. So a lot of those videos that I did were based on my engineering experience before I came to medical school, believe it or not. So the way I started doing these videos, I used to prepare these lectures back when I was at University of Florida, and I always thought that the visual portion of my lecture were the most important. Right, so I mean, the old adage that a picture's worth 1,000 words. I really believe that. So if you have a great graphic, you can really explain a difficult topic much easier. And so I started off with PowerPoint, and back when I started, when I was up in Virginia, PowerPoint, you would actually make a PowerPoint, then you would print the slides. You would actually print out the slides, and you'd have a little carousel. And then it was on the computer, and then you could start doing animation. And that evolved into 3D animation that got into. And the first experience I had is I wanted to do a educational vignette on the history of X-rays and how X-rays are generated. So I was at the University of Florida at the time, and I was talking to someone in the computer department about doing all this. this, and they introduced me to some kid who was into the 3D animation way back then, and I told him what I wanted to do, and he goes, yeah, I can do that. So he comes back about 3 weeks later, and he's got this very crude animation of an electron flying across the Crookes tube, or the cathode ray tube, and hitting the anode and producing an X-ray, and it didn't look that great, and he wanted $400 for it, and I'm like, I'm done with this. I got to do this myself. So that's when I learned how to do it. So gradually I learned how to do all of these different, animations, and then I use that to basically put videos together that I think may be a little bit difficult to understand under ordinary teaching situations, that may be a little easier to assimilate with the graphics. And I don't know if I've accomplished that or not. Sometimes I go overboard because sometimes I think my graphics are probably better than they really are.
Well, they're pretty good.
But I mean, I try. So that's how I, as a radiologist, got involved with things way outside of my field, like fat metabolism. And some of it was based on my own experience. I mean, everyone in my family has hypercholesterolemia, so I wanted to put together something about fat and cholesterol because, that has been an evolution in my academic career as well, because when I first started medical school, it was an absolute number. If your cholesterol was above 200, that was a problem based on Framingham data. And then they said, okay, well, wait, that's not true because you can actually fractionate that, and if your HDL is high, that's protective because it's reverse cholesterol transport. Your LDL is the bad one. If that one's high, then that's problematic. Mm-hmm. So then they came out and they said, okay, that's not entirely true. Your LDL can be also good. You can subfractionate that into the buoyant and non-buoyant particles. And if you have a lot of the buoyant ones, they're not as atherogenic as the non-buoyant or dense particles. And now they go so far as to actually numbering the particles. So you can actually go and do like MRI or NMR and count the number of particles, which may be even more important than anything that we've done previously.
Lots of acronyms there,
Lots
Heather.
of acronyms.
I know she's doing jumping jacks, though, every time you say UF. So we'll take our last break with Volusia Today and come back and wrap up with Dr. Klioze. Stay with us.
Airborne! Okay, why don't we go to the Marine Science Center? Yeah!
Are you looking for a new adventure? Come on down to the Marine Science Center in Ponce Inlet. Watch as our staff cares for sick and injured sea turtles. You can also explore our marine exhibits, touch some stingrays, visit our gift shop, and stroll through the Seabird Sanctuary. Afterward, you can visit the Ponce Inlet Lighthouse. The Marine Science Center is open every day but Monday.
Make the most of your day at the beach. Download the Volusia County Beaches app today. Sign up for real-time notifications on vehicle ramp openings and closings. Find staffed lifeguard towers. Get updates on tide and beach conditions, plus off-beach parking and coastal parks info. Volusia County Beaches app is available for your smart devices at the App Store and Google Play.
You can access Volusia County government online at volusia.org. Listen to county council meetings, pay for permits or tags, or search the property appraisers' databases. Volusia.org is your Volusia County government information resource.
We're back. You're listening to Volusia Today, a public radio program brought to you by the Volusia County Community Information. I'm Heather, and here's Kevin Captain.
Thanks, Heather. So, Dr. Klioze, in the last really couple of minutes that we have, Heather mentioned, you and Andrea, that you guys go out and you exercise, you do a lot of healthy things. Why Volusia County? Why did you come here to practice, and what do you love about living here in Volusia County?
Well, I'm not going to get into why I came here. It was my wife's decision.
That's a whole nother story.
That's a whole nother story. I don't have enough time to get into that, but I just did whatever she told me to do for the past 27 years, which has worked out well. I'm still married.
Yes, dear, right?
But,
yes.
Exactly. I can tell you, I grew up in Northern Virginia, Fairfax, and when I would go over the intercoastal to go to Virginia Beach or Ocean City, Maryland, that was vacation for me, and I would get this euphoric feeling crossing over that. I still get that today. I mean, every day that I wake up in Ormond Beach and I go over that bridge, I still get that euphoric feeling. I mean, we are so blessed to be where we are. The beach is awesome. Love going there. The activities outside of the beach are also amazing. My son is a naturalist. He's really into the, herpetology, the snakes. He took us on, before he went out to California, he took us to some to Colorado. He took us on a trail, and we found a whole bunch of these scarlet king snakes. He knew where they were.
Yeah.
We just went up and down and found these things all over the place. And, we found owls, and we saw foxes. just amazing
A lot of
stuff.
wildlife here in
A lot
Volusia.
of wildlife. It was awesome. My brother came down. His son, my nephew, is going to be attending Palmer College. He's going to be a chiropractor. And my brother is an avid pickleball player. And when I told him about Pictona down in Holly Hill, he goes, "Yeah, I'd like to check it out."
Is that why your legs and knees are all bruised up?
Yes, I don't want to show. Yeah, I thought I was playing this like I was 20, and the ball came dribbling over the net. My wife hit it, and I wasn't going to let her beat us, so I dove for that thing on the pickleball court, tore up both my knees, torqued my neck, fell into the net itself, and knocked that down. And my brother comes up to me and goes, "Dude, this is an old man sport." He goes, "Let those go." He goes, "We don't go for that." And I missed the ball, too. Completely missed the ball. So I look like a complete idiot. And my brother's trying to find the video of the whole thing to put it on social media.
Of
and
course.
hopefully he will never find that. But, the things, I think it's going to transform Holly Hill. I really do. It's become so popular. They're now expanding it.
They are.
And they're building a stadium. They have their first tournament in October. That's how amazing it is. And it's a great story. They went to Daytona first and asked them to do something down there and kind of got poo-pooed, and then they went down to Holly Hill, and those guys said, "We'd love that." Gave them the land right across from City Hall, and they developed it all right there. But I've been here 20 years, and we've done some amazing stuff. I just told you about Pictona. Bill Jones up in Ormond Beach is developing that area. It's really becoming a nice place to walk, and I think Daytona's doing a great job, kind of redeveloping their area. So
Well, it's definitely this is definitely a great place to work, play, and live.
Absolutely.
And with Pictona, with the county's ECHO program helping with that, it's certainly it's a win-win. It's a great place to
Absolutely.
live. And so also too, just to close, thank you for what you do in the hospitals and for helping to make our community healthy and safe. And with that, that's pretty much all we have for today. So we'll wrap up Volusia Today. Thanks for listening. Take care, stay safe, and help your neighbors.
If you have a comment about Volusia Today, or if there is a topic you would like to hear featured, please contact Volusia County Community Information at 1-866-345-0345.